Hi, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do the tubular chenille stitch. This stitch is really fun. It's really lacy. The size beads that I'm using are 8/0 seed beads, and I'm using 3 different colors. I'm using one color as my ladder stitch start and finish, and then other colors to go in the middle. It'll be easy for you to learn if you already know herringbone stitch and ladder stitch. If you don't know herringbone and ladder, check out our other YouTube videos first. It'll make a lot more sense to you and just make you make it easier to understand. Or you can just watch this, go back and check the other videos out. So to start out, we're going to start out with a ladder stitch. I'm starting out with 6 rows of ladder stitch and 2 beads on each row. So what I'm going to do initially to start is I'm putting 4 beads onto my size 10 beading needle, and I'm using 0.006 wildfire beading thread. I have my 4 beads on. I'm going to go back through my original 2 beads in a circular motion, so I'm sewing back away from the tail, and I'm pulling them tight, and what that's going to do is create a little circle. If you want to at this point, you can do a half hitch knot, which is going through your center, making a little loop, and taking your needle back through there. That's going to kind of hold everything in place to give a nice tight pull. And then what I'm going to do is sew down through the second set of beads that I put on. So with this, I'm always sewing in a circle. Again, if you're not sure how to do ladder, check out our other videos. I'm going to do 6 rows of this. And then after my 6 rows are completed, we're going to start with our chenille stitch. So now that I've gotten my 6 rows of ladder stitch, I'm going to round out the stitch. To do that, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go through the last bead. And again, I'm always going in a circular motion, so that thread is coming around. I'm going up away from my tail. And what I'm going to do is pull that, and that is going to make a circle. My circle is not connected here at the top, so what I need to do is take my needle, again in a circular motion, and I'm going here, and I'm going to have it rounded out. That's going to round out my stitch here. And what you can do at this point if you want is take your tail and kind of knot it off and cut off that extra wire. If you know that you want to attach bead caps or something, keep that on. That way when you go back, you have the thread already attached and you don't need to attach another piece. I'm just going to let mine hang out there. And I'm going to take my thread to get it back to the top. I'm going to take it up the next row of my ladder stitch. And here's where I'm going to switch to my color of my beads. And this is a little bit like the herringbone stitch. So I'm going to put on 2 beads. And then I'm going to drop down to my next bead in line of my ladder stitch. I'm going through just 1 bead. So that first bead in the row of ladder is just going to hang out. I'm going to go up the next bead in my stitch. Add 2 more beads. I'm always adding this sapphire color in groups of 2. My darker color, my iris color, I'm going to be adding in groups of 1. So for every iris bead, there's always going to be 2 of my sapphire. Again, I go down one of the ladders, up a ladder. Add 2 beads. Go down a ladder. And here I'm rounding out and I'm done my row. What I need to do at this point is go up through my first bead that I went on in my ladder, and I'm also at this point going to go up through my first sapphire bead. So that way my needle's coming out there. Give it a nice pull. Just make sure your thread doesn't get mixed in. And now I'm coming out the top of my rows. When I come out the top, here's where I'm going to add my darker iris bead. So I'm going to add 1 bead and continue on just as if I was doing a herringbone. So I'm adding 1 bead and I'm sewing back through the second and the first bead of the set. Add another bead. So add a bead, sew down 1, and then sew up 1. Normally in a herringbone stitch, you'll add 2 beads in that place. For this chenille stitch, you're just going to add 1. Add a bead, sew down 1, which is going to be my last bead in my row. Pull tight, and then I'm also going to sew up. To increase and to get up my ladder, and make this tubular, what I'm also going to do at this point is sew through my first of my iris beads that I put on. So it's sewn right through there. I'm going to give it a nice tight pull. And now I'm getting ready to continue sewing on. So what I'm going to do now is every other row is going to be the opposite. So I just did my row of iris beads, and now I'm going to do 2 of my sapphire and sew through the iris beads that are sticking up. And this is going to continue the whole rest of the bracelet. So I sewed through the iris bead, added 2 sapphires, sewed through the next iris. 2 sapphires, sew through the next iris bead. 2 sapphires, sew through my last of my iris beads. At that same time, I'm also going to sew up through the first bead of that row that I just did, which would be my first sapphire bead that I put on. Now again, I'm going to continue, and I'll show you one more row. Then I'll do a little bit more, and then I'll show you how to end it. So we have our iris bead going on, and that's going on in between my sapphire beads. So down 1 sapphire bead, so up the next one in line. Iris bead on, so down through 1, up through 1. Iris bead on, so down 1, up 1, and then because I am at the end and my 3 iris beads are on, I'm going to always sew through the first bead in the last row that I did. So this continues on, and what you're going to get is this little V channel. You can see it really well in the pink and the green, and that green here is the same as my irisy color. The blue is going to be the same as the pink, and we get that nice kind of X fashion. You can change around the colors and around the sizes. Again, this is a size 8. I'm going to do a couple more rows, and then I'll show you how to do the ladder stitch on the end, so that way it ends it and it looks like a nice little box there. Now that I've gotten a couple more rows done of my chenille stitch, I'm going to show you how to do ladder stitch on the end in order to round it out. If you want to, like I said, you could add bead caps to here. You can stick it on memory wire. It's a really nice open kind of flexible stitch, so it can be used for a lot of different things. You could do a number of them and just have them on a cording, hang a pendant down from it. What you want to do to end is you want to end with the same that you began with. So I'm ending with whatever bead is your double bead. This is my sapphire bead here. I ended with my pink bead because those are the ones that I did in double. I'm going to come out through one of my sets, and I'm going to add on 4 of my silver beads, which would be for my ladder set. Let them drop down next to my stitch, and I'm going to stitch down through the next bead. So normally in this place I would stitch one of my iris beads. I'm stitching 4 of whatever color I'm doing for my ladder stitch. I'm going to stitch up through my next bead, again, just as if I was going to be putting on my iris bead. Instead, I'm putting on 2 of my ladder stitch and letting that drop down next to the place. Then go through your 2 original beads that were on the row before it of your ladder stitch, and that's going to kind of pull it together. And then you're going to sew back up through the 2 that you just put on. So you're kind of doing this backwards as you go in your steps. On go 2 more of my ladder beads, down through one of my sets, pull tight. I'm going to go then and add my next row of beads, my next 2. So down through those first 2, down through one of your beads. That's going to kind of pull it in tight. What I can do then is sew down through a bead. So I'm basically just doing my ladder stitch backwards, and that's going to get me that ladder to close it off with. So I have one more set of beads to add, adding 2, going down through a bead in my set. So I'm just using these silver beads in place of my iris beads. I'm going to go back through them, a blue sapphire bead up through my ladder, and what this is going to do is it's going to round it out down my ladder. And you can do this as many times as you want to kind of secure the ends. You can see where I'm stitching. and that's going to secure and make that ladder stitch on the end. So when you look at it, it's going to mimic itself, and it's going to look like it has that tubular shape, and the ladder just finishes it off really nicely, and it also makes your ends match. These make great segments. If I wanted to put a bead on each end, I could put a bead on each end and then continue on with my look. I could even make a couple of these. It's a really fast stitch. Have fun with it. Again, this is the tubular chenille stitch. It is open in the middle, especially if you use a bigger bead. If you use an 11-0, it's a little bit tighter. The 8s are really, really easy and great to work with. I do like the look of seed beads versus delicas. So if you have 8-0 seed beads, use those instead of the delicas. Have fun, make a bunch of little sections if you want to. Make a long section, put it on memory wire, or stick it on a necklace. Thanks for watching this Chenille Stitch. If you need any help, check out one of our stores. Check us out on Facebook and like us, and also follow us on YouTube and subscribe. So thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully you have fun with the Chenille Stitch.